Arthur Schopenhauer was born on February 22, 1788. He became one of the most important philosophers in history. His ideas were deep and sometimes difficult, but they also helped many people understand life in a new way. Schopenhauer believed that the world was full of suffering. He thought that people could not escape pain, but they could learn how to live with it. Schopenhauer was very interested in the ideas of an earlier philosopher, Immanuel Kant. Kant said that people could never know the real world as it truly was. Schopenhauer agreed with this idea, but he added something new. He said that the world was made of two parts. One part was what people could see and experience, and the other part was something deeper, which he called will. Will was a powerful force that moved everything in the world. It made people want things, feel emotions, and take actions. Schopenhauer thought that this will was blind and never satisfied. People always wanted something new, and when they got it, they wanted something else. This meant that life was full of endless wanting, and this wanting led to suffering. One of Schopenhauer's most famous books is called The World as Will and Representation. In this book, he explained his ideas about the will and how it controlled everything. He wrote that people could never be truly happy because their desires never ended. He believed that the best way to escape suffering was to stop wanting things. He thought that art, music, and philosophy could help people forget their desires for a short time. He also believed that kindness and compassion were important because everyone was suffering in the same way. Schopenhauer loved music and thought it was the highest form of art. He said that music was special because it could express deep emotions without words. He believed that when people listened to music, they could feel something beyond the everyday world. He also admired Eastern philosophy, especially Buddhism and Hinduism. He saw similarities between his ideas and the teachings of these traditions. He believed that Buddhist monks and Hindu sages had discovered ways to escape suffering by letting go of their desires. Although Schopenhauer's ideas were very serious and sometimes dark, he also had a sense of humor. He enjoyed telling stories and using examples to explain his thoughts. One of his famous examples is about a hedgehog. He said that people were like hedgehogs in winter. When they were too far apart, they felt lonely and cold. But when they got too close, they hurt each other with their sharp spines. So, they had to find the right distance to stay warm without hurting each other. This idea was about human relationships. People needed each other, but they also needed personal space. Schopenhauer was not very famous when he was young, but later, many people started to read his books. His ideas influenced many great thinkers, writers, and artists. People such as Friedrich Nietzsche, Richard Wagner, and even Albert Einstein found inspiration in his work. Some people agreed with him completely, while others argued against his ideas. But no one could ignore him. One of the things Schopenhauer talked about was free will. He asked whether people really had the power to choose their actions or if everything was controlled by the will. He believed that people felt like they were making choices, but in reality, their actions were controlled by deeper forces. This was similar to the way a river flowed in one direction because of nature. People, too, followed a path created by their desires and experiences. Another important idea in Schopenhauer's philosophy was about the meaning of life. He thought that life did not have a clear purpose. Many people believed that life was about finding happiness, but Schopenhauer thought that this was impossible. Since people always wanted something new, they could never be happy for long. He said that the best thing people could do was to understand this truth and try to live wisely. He admired people who lived simple lives and did not chase after material things. Schopenhauer also wrote about love. He thought that love was not really about romance or happiness, but rather about something deeper. He believed that people fell in love because of nature's plan to continue human life. He said that people did not choose whom they loved based on personal happiness, but because of unconscious forces that helped create the next generation. This idea was very different from what most people thought about love, but some found it interesting. In his later years, Schopenhauer lived a quiet life. He liked to take long walks, read books, and think about philosophy. He had a small dog that he loved very much. He was not very social, but he had a few close friends. Even though he did not become rich or very famous during his lifetime, his books continued to be read after his death. Today, many people still find his ideas useful and thought-provoking. Schopenhauer's ideas may seem difficult, but they help people think deeply about life. He taught that suffering was a part of the world, but people could find ways to deal with it. He showed that art, music, and kindness could bring some relief. His work continues to inspire new generations, and his influence can be seen in philosophy, literature, and even psychology. One of Schopenhauer's most interesting ideas is about the difference between knowledge and wisdom. He said that knowledge was about learning facts, but wisdom was about understanding life. A person could be very intelligent and know many things, but still not be wise. Wisdom, he believed, came from experience and deep thinking. He thought that people should try to understand the nature of life, instead of just collecting information. Schopenhauer also believed that humor was important. Even though he often talked about suffering, he also knew that laughter could help people deal with pain. He liked jokes and sometimes made fun of other philosophers. He thought that people who could laugh at life's difficulties were stronger and wiser. Another one of his interesting ideas was about animals. Many philosophers before him thought that animals were not very important, but Schopenhauer disagreed. He believed that animals also felt pain and emotions, just like humans. He said that people should be kind to animals and respect them. This idea was unusual at the time, but today, many people agree with him. Schopenhauer's philosophy was not just about thinking, it was also about how to live. He believed that people should not be controlled by their desires. He thought that it was better to live a simple and thoughtful life. He admired people who did not chase after fame, money, or pleasure. Instead, he thought that people should focus on understanding life and helping others. Even though Schopenhauer's ideas were often serious, they were also practical. He gave advice about how to live in a world full of suffering. He said that people should not expect too much from life. If people understood that suffering was natural, they would not be so disappointed when bad things happened. He believed that accepting the truth was better than trying to escape from it. Schopenhauer's work remains important today. Many people still read the world as will and representation and find new ideas in it. His thoughts about suffering, desire, love, and happiness continue to make people think. He was a philosopher who looked at life honestly, without illusions. He showed that even though life was full of pain, there were ways to live wisely and with understanding. Schopenhauer may not have had an easy life, but his ideas continue to inspire people. His words remind us that life is not always happy, but it can still be meaningful. He believed that by understanding the nature of the world, people could find peace. His philosophy teaches that wisdom, kindness, and art can help people face the difficulties of life. This is why he is still remembered today.